Hello and welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, your daily stop for decoding UPSC current affairs the smart and structured way. It's July 8, 2025 and today's edition covers two critical analysis topics for Mains 2025. First, we explore rising seas, shifting lives, how climate change is impacting coastal India and what it means for migration, planning and justice. Then we take a closer look at the legal framework on phone tapping in the country, balancing privacy, security, and constitutional safeguards. Next, in our simplified section, packed for prelims 2026, we cover key updates from India's first digital census to the ethnic tensions unfolding in Myanmar. So let's begin. Hi guys, welcome back again to another episode of The Analyst, where we are going to look at the most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express today, where we are firstly going to start with Rising Seas, Shifting Lives, with reference to this editorial in the Hindu, which is an extremely important one because it is focusing on the recent instance of rising sea levels across the country. So we are going to look at from the perspective of disaster management. We are also looking from the perspective of climate refugees, which is actually the main outcome that we see in any climate change related disaster. So this is actually a slow disaster which is taking place over decades of global warming, and in this article this is focusing on mainly the coastal ecosystems of the country, which are getting displaced by rising sea levels, saltwater intrusion into the wetlands and the local ecosystems, and the cumulative effect of various industrial projects, tourism projects on the scene. So we are going to look at this from the perspective of GS3 mainly, from the conservation perspective, from the perspective of environmental pollution, climate change and degradation, where we are also going to touch upon the important crucial aspects of disaster management. Now, when I talk about the crisis, I cannot ignore the recent instances that we have seen in all the major ports of our country. In the comments, you let me know what are the total number of major ports in the country, but what the government did, the government collected data of the increase in water levels across all the major ports. So they found out water levels has increased as high as 5.16 in Diamond Harbour near Kolkata. That means 5.16 millimeter per year is the annual increasing rate of the seas across the Bay of Bengal. If you also see the same in the nearby ports, we have Paradvip, we also have Vishakhapatnam, which are also seeing instances but at a lower level. That means that the impact of rising sea levels is actually varied across the entire country, with high as 5.16, with also low as 0.6, 0.3 in Chennai, right? When we talk about the same in Gujarat, that is also as high as 3.18. So there are various climate hotspots in the country. When we talk about Satyabaya in Odisha, it is where the various villages are getting submerged and mainly the poorer sections are getting affected. In Karnataka, we also have so many fishing communities which are hit by this. At Nagapattinam in Tamil Nadu, we also have the same with reference to sea intrusion and sand mining cases, where illegal sand mining is also leading to further coastal erosion. Next, we also see the same in Kutch and Kerala. So all of these are cumulative impacts of the rising sea levels in the entire country. Now, when we talk about the same, when we talk about the main causes of sea level rise in the country and also in the entire world, we generally have to blame the global warming phenomena. We know that the concentration of CO2 is increasing in the atmosphere, and we know that CO2 is a global warming gas. When we have much amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, it leads to the trapping of heat, and this trapping of heat is leading to warmer waters, which is known as thermal expansion of water. Water can retain heat for a longer period of time, and that is why we understand that whenever water gets heated, it expands. And that is one of the reasons why we can actually attribute 50% of the global sea rise just due to thermal expansion, just due to the existing water expanded due to heat. After that, we have ice loss from glaciers. Mainly, we see high levels of sea level rise at Diamond Harbour. Why? Because the Himalayan glaciers melt and they flow in the Ganges, and finally they flow out to the Bay of Bengal. That is one of the main reasons we see retreating glaciers and how it can directly impact the sea level rise. Next, we also have the loss of ice sheets across the entire world. Maybe we are talking about here the polar ice caps. The Arctic and the Antarctic, which are also seeing right now, are increasingly melting away due to global warming, and obviously due to land water storage and maybe the pollution, maybe the plastic pollution. All of these are the various contributing to the global sea level rise. On a global level, we have seen that from 1901 to 2018, the average was around 0.2 meters. And here, when we talk about the recent times, the data which we got from 2013 to 2022, the sea level rise on an average level across the entire world was around 4.5 millimeters. And this is what is increasing over a period of time. And we know that the Paris Agreement actually warned us about the rise in global temperature by 1.5 degrees by 2030 and 2 degrees by 2100, that is the end of the century. If at all these levels rise beyond that, we can have more than 2 to 5 meters of sea level rise across the entire country. So we can actually understand the impact of the same on cities such as Kolkata, Mumbai, Chennai, Surat, and also we cannot ignore the islands of our country. They also will be submerged. So this is where we have to understand what is happening right now. So the sea levels are rising. This is leading to saltwater intrusion, and this is totally eroding the livelihood of the local people, mainly the fishermen. Next, we also see extreme weather events due to this thing, because we have to understand, take the case of cyclones. One of the main reasons why cyclones are becoming more intense and more unpredictable is due to thermal expansion of water. You must have known by now that one of the most important factors for cyclone is actually the sea level temperature. So if the sea level temperatures increase over a period of time, we will be seeing more instances of cyclones and much more stronger cyclones, as we have seen in recent times in the case of Amphan and so many other instances. In this entire thing, we have to understand that local bodies sometimes are not equipped to deal with these cyclones or these extreme instances of lightning in recent times. That's why a lot of homes are washed away. A lot of people die, especially in Bihar, which is actually known as the lightning capital of India, because we have so many deaths coming from the region. So this is generally due to the thermal expansion of water. The warmer waters are leading to more extreme weather events, be it the cyclones in the coastal region, be the lightning in Bihar, be it the landslide events. We have to focus on this particular aspect. Next, we also have so many infrastructural projects across the entire coastal communities. We have more ports coming up, we have more ecotourism projects which are coming up. We have more aquaculture focus, especially after the PM Matsya Sampada Yojana, which is a very important initiative to boost the aquaculture livelihood of our coastal communities. Now, these are all good. We have to have growth and development together. We have to take forward increasing livelihood of the people, the local development, and we have to also take care of the environment, which is not taking place at times. Due to various reasons, we see the mangroves are getting destroyed. And that the mangroves in the coastal communities are extremely important when we talk about aquaculture, because the roots of the mangroves are excellent breeding ground for fish. So if they get destroyed, the fishing stocks also get degraded. And we have to talk about wetlands. They are known as the kidneys of the ecosystem. The same function the kidney does in our body, which is filtering out toxic chemicals, substances, the same function the wetlands also do in our natural ecosystems. The coastal communities are full of wetlands. You talk about Kerala, where we have the lagoons. You talk about West Bengal, where we have so many ponds. You can also talk about Mumbai, Kutch, where we have the salt pans. Wetlands are everywhere, right? And whenever we get excess amount of salt water within it, the main function of the wetlands are disturbed. As also we can see the same according to a study done by the United Nations Development Program in Sundarbans, which you can actually quote in your answers. You see that the coastal communities in Sundarban, they are reporting that not even a blade of grass is growing right now, because the soil have become so much saline, due to which we are not getting crops. forget the fishing stocks at all. And also, almost 2 centimeters of sea level rise will be seen this century. This is also according to a study, which was published in the Indian Express. So all these are instances of this particular event which is taking place, which are having massive economic and social impacts. Firstly, we have already discussed about the loss of livelihood. That means soiled water is ruining everything. That means no crops and no fish. Also, the people who are in the coastal villages, who were traditionally dependent on aquaculture, on agriculture, they are right now seeing that the sea level rise is making their fields infertile. Also, on the government side, they are not seeing concrete actions to have proper development in their villages. So what they will do? They will push to urban areas, and when they come to urban areas in big cities like Delhi, like Mumbai, they generally see that there are no formal jobs. So they are absorbed in the informal sector, such as construction workers, domestic help or bonded laborers. And they face an immense amount of economic struggle in the cities. Their children drop out of school. They are forced into child labor. And this vicious cycle of poverty goes on. Their parents could not have proper economic opportunity due to climate change. Their children are dropped out of school. So you can imagine the future of the generations. Then at the end of the day, these families, when they do not have proper economic opportunities, they take loans, not from banks or not from other formal institutions like NBFCs or taking some gold loans from a formal institution. They are taking loans from moneylenders, also maybe from their friends and families. And this is trapping them in a debt trap. And that is where, when they are actually, living their lives to pay off the debt, they are also not able to fulfill their educational and health requirements or skilling requirements. So they are perennially, for the entirety of their lives, they are trapped in, again, low wage jobs. Next, there are no legal coverage because that the current labor codes, the labor laws in the country, do not have proper incentives or the features for people displaced by such climate related events, who are then absorbed into the informal sector as migrant workers. So the main thing is that the labor laws do not have provisions for climate refugees. Now, climate refugees are on the rise right now. Now, when we see various countries with most new displacements by disasters in 2019, and these disasters are mainly the climate influenced disasters in the recent times, we see India as one of the most countries which are facing these disasters, followed by Philippines, Bangladesh, China and US. Also, when we see the rising sea levels, which will be posing significant risks to around 36 million Indians, that is by 2050, we see again India is here at third rank. So that is where we have to understand that how our labor laws, our institutions must be having right now a proper definition of climate refugees, which we do not have right now. We do not have any legal coverage for them, right? And at the end of the day, whatever the issues that we face in our common lives, we have to understand from a traditional background these people are coming from. They actually understand that the most serious impacts are borne by women. When we talk about abuse, when we talk about trafficking risks, they are facing the most of the crisis. They have to work for miles to get water. And when we start to appreciate their most important economic role, they are not sometimes also absorbed in the labor force. So now we need to also look at what are the various government policies to be blamed here. We have the Disaster Management Act of 2005, but this particular act is not having the provision for slow onset disasters. That means sea level rise or those natural disasters taken place by global warming or climate change, right, which are causing climate refugees, right? So we do not have proper provisions for the same under Disaster Management Act, because they generally look at various disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, the various relief mechanisms and so on. We do not have a long-term plan for these slow onset disasters. Next, we have the various environmental laws in the country such as the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. So these are mainly focused on regulating the environment, not the people who are affected by climate change. or who are made refugees due to climate change. So the climate refugee thing is what we are missing in the policy imperatives. The same we are also seeing the lacking in Labour Codes 2020. We do not have any mention of climate migrants. When we talk about coastal regulation zone, which is a zonation planning of the coastal ecosystem so that we have proper zones for industrial activities, we have no-go zones for industrial or various development activities. The same is also not being implemented properly on grounds. We have so many instances of the same coming from Kerala, coming from Tamil Nadu, where there are issues with coastal projects. So recently, according to a report by Manga Bay, India, we see that the Tamil Nadu coast is actually burdened by infrastructural projects which are against the climate change norms. And at the end of the day, the NAPCC, the National Action Plan on Climate Change, and the State Action Plan on Climate Change mainly focuses on the rehabilitation aspect, but they are very vague on the rehabilitation and the labor integration of the climate refugees. So we have to keep in mind, guys, that mainly we are thinking this topic from the perspective of climate refugees. So that is where the conclusion is that we do not have proper perspectives on climate refugees in the country. Also, when we talk about the democratic deficits, whenever we have some infrastructural projects in the coastal areas, it has been increasingly reported by the critics that free prior informed consent of the local people are not taken. Right? The panchayats at the local level are not consulted. Also, the climate activists, the people who protest against these projects, they are either threatened or sometimes even criminalized with fake provisions. So these are the things which totally go against the Supreme Court judgments of MC Mehta case of 1987 and Indian Council for Environmental Legal Action of 1996. So these are going against the Supreme Court principles on climate jurisprudence, where mainly it has been ruled by the Supreme Court that climate change is a serious menace, and Article 21 actually provides for your right to life, right, and liberty, and which also includes your right to clean air and clean water and clean environment. Now here, when we talk about the solutions, what to be done, we need proper legal reforms. Firstly, we need to define climate migrants in law and have to give them rights. Next, we have to strengthen the coastal regulatory zones, and we have to stop immediately the destruction of the coasts. In this particular aspect, we also have another news in the paper today, right, regarding the Great Nicobar project, which are also seeing immense kind of criticisms, and the same report has been given to the NGT, National Green Tribunal. So we have to see what the NGT is ruling in this favor. After this, we have to extend labor laws to protect informal workers affected by climate change. Next, we have to focus increasingly on sustainable development. We have to now rebuild the mangrove stocks which were destroyed earlier, because they are the first natural barriers against any kind of natural disasters taking place in the form of thunderstorms or cyclones in the coastal areas. We have to right now also talk about community-led rehabilitation, not just government colonies, but also we have to focus beyond rehabilitation. We have to give them jobs, we have to give them settlements in the urban areas or in the adjoining villages, so that they have a basic livelihood, so that their children do not drop out of schools. Next, we have to build climate resilience in actually agriculture, and we have to actually talk about salt tolerant crops for coastal farmers, so that despite their soil fertility declining, we can give them proper rehabilitation. And at the end of the day, we cannot ignore the historical responsibilities of the United States, of the European Union. When they have actually polluted historically, they must be taking the blame right now. They must be funding our adaptation strategies. And we must also try to follow SDG goal number 8.7, which here should be also be reformed in the country to include climate change refugees. And we have various good news coming from the entire country. We have various good case studies which you can actually mention in your main answers, in the form of Save Satabaya movement in Odisha, which is demanding proper rehabilitation for the people in the local areas affected by climate change. In Tamil Nadu, we have the Ennore Creek projects. In Kerala, we have the Pottuvam mangrove movement, which are actually the local movement, the grassroots movements to pioneer for the local people's needs. Now, we have the mains practice question. You practice this in the comments. Let me know. We'll be giving you feedback. Now on to the next one. The next topic is extremely interesting. It is on phone tapping and the legal provisions of the same in the country. Because recently we have two High Court rulings, one from Delhi High Court, another from Madras High Court. Now both of them are giving totally opposite verdicts on the phone tapping cases. So firstly, I will be going through some very basic information on the same. Then we are going to discuss this from the perspective of doctrine of proportionality, which is actually a very important topic in your polity and Indian constitution. And also when we are talking about the phone tapping case, this relates to internal security threats via communication networks too from your GS mains perspective. So the main context here, that can government tap phone some suspects to gather evidence before a crime is even committed? So the Madras and the High Court verdicts are giving some answers to us. So firstly, we are going to look at very basics. You know, all of you must have watched the Khaki Bihar chapter, right? And you can exactly relate what phone tapping is evidently on. In the comments, you let me know exactly what is the main thing which I'm talking about here relating to phone tapping and Khaki Bihar chapter. But here, when we talk about phone tapping, it also goes by the name of telephonic surveillance or wiretapping, where the government will be listening to your conversations or government will be reading your messages via SMSs and even your social media messages without any consent or knowledge on your side. So why the government will be doing it? We know that tapping is actually against your right to liberty, your right to privacy, right, your fundamental rights. But you know that fundamental rights, or for that matter any rights, must be coming with a reasonable restriction. That you cannot tell that you are above the state or you are above the country. In the case of some, for example, say terrorism incidents, a terrorist cannot say that my phone cannot be tapped because I have fundamental right. So always this delicate balance has to be maintained. So the government will not be doing phone tapping in any cases. They will only be doing the same if it deals with national security, if it actually needs to maintain public order. Public order, for example, in this case, to tackle a gangster, right, or to even prevent crime, right, before the crime is even taking place. Sometimes the police can have some suspicions, some doubts on some people who are trying to do some illegal activities. So the government can actually try to regulate their behavior. And at the end of the day, we have to also maintain friendly relations with the countries. This is actually a part of the DPSP. In the comments, you let me know what is the article number. And here, there is an evident trade-off between your state and your privacy rights whenever we are talking about phone tapping cases. Now, for anything to happen in the country which is taking place from the perspective of the government, we always need an act for that matter. So there is a legal framework for phone tapping cases in the country. So the first act we have here is the Indian Telegraph Act of 1885. Yes, that's 1885, which is actually almost 200 years ago, right? So here, this act is mainly looking at tapping voice calls under the section 5 subclause 2, where it can actually tap into voice calls or SMSs, right? So here, the act specifically says that on public emergency or interest of public safety, if it is necessary in the interest of the sovereignty, security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, or to prevent incitement to an offense, you can actually do phone tapping. So here the central or the state government can do the same according to the provisions which are extremely important for your prelims examination. And the orders of phone tapping must always be in writing. So whoever the authorized authority is, so they must be doing the same in writing. And also the same is subjected to reasonable restrictions under Article 19 subclause 2, because mainly the constitutional safeguards guarantee us the freedom of speech and right to privacy, right, in this particular matter, which are having proper articles backing the same. Now, right to privacy was actually enforced via the Puttaswamy judgment of 2017 as a fundamental right, right? But due to the pressing urgencies of the state, right, the government can take away that right from you in the national interest. Now, the Information Technology Act of 2000 is looking at more modern forms of tapping. It is looking into tapping your emails, WhatsApp chats under Section 69, where maybe we are focusing mainly on the digital communication. We have another instance such as the Indian Post Office Act of 1898, which is actually the oldest provision here, but it is rarely used in the country because no one will be tapping the postal messages right now, because everyone communicates via emails, via WhatsApp messages, via calls. Now, even before Puttaswamy case, which focused on the right to privacy of people as fundamental rights, we already had in 1997 a major landmark Supreme Court case focusing on the Section 5 subclause 2 of the Indian Telegraph Act that allows tapping. So basically what happened, there were several people who went to the Supreme Court and told that, okay, the government is authorized legally via an act to listen to our phone calls. So don't you think, Supreme Court, that it is illegal? Supreme Court told that, okay, this is not illegal because in the interest of the country, national security, friendly relations, incitement to any offense, or in anticipation of any offense, the police can take actions. So with reference to some important cases, you should not be having your fundamental rights if it concerns your country. You should be having some reasonable restrictions on your fundamental rights if it relates to your country. The Supreme Court actually upheld the provisions of this law, but actually laid down some safeguards. So firstly, the Supreme Court told that there has to be various requirements. Firstly, the issuing authority of the phone tapping case must be only be coming from the Home Secretary, either at the state or the central level. Next, the Supreme Court told that there must be a time limit because there must be a review by a committee within 2 months. The review committee will be consisting of the Cabinet Secretary, Law Secretary and the Telecom Secretary. And there must be a test of necessity which must be done. That interception can only be done if information, the government, if it wants to extract information via phone tapping, the government first must be saying that we have exhausted all the legal measures and this is the last measure or the last resort that I am going to take, right? So the government must have exhausted other means and then only they must be thinking about phone tapping cases. Next, the documentation must be thorough. All kind of approvals, all kind of justifications, all must be written down. They must be preserved as evidence. And this is actually incorporated, this particular Supreme Court judgment has been incorporated within rule number 419A of the Indian Telegraph Rules. So according to these rules, right now phone tapping cases are done with these safeguards. And if at all rules are violated in any of the stages, the particular evidence will be inadmissible in any court and the government will have to be paying some compensation in this matter. So the government should not be having illegal cases of phone tapping too. Now here, we have seen the PUCL judgment. Right now we have to look at the recent cases too. Now in 2025, the Delhi High Court and the Madras High Court here gave some conflicting cases, or gave some conflicting orders. Firstly, in the Madras case, what happened, a civilian, an Indian citizen, gave bribe to an income tax officer to the tune of 50 lakh to hide his black money. So the court told that, tax evasion is a very serious offense, but it is not going against public safety. If someone is keeping black money, the court told that is not going against public safety. So the court told that the Ministry of Home Affairs interception of the call in 2011 of that particular person was illegal, right? And here, this tap did not comply with the 1997 Supreme Court judgment. So it ruled that phone tap was illegal, evidence is not admissible in court. Now come to Delhi High Court case. What happened here? As a part of a redevelopment project or a contract which was given to a private entity, it was said that the private entity's founders, they allegedly gave bribe to the public government officials. and the government of India got to know about it. After getting to know about it, the government tried to tap the phone call between the public official and the founders of that particular company who will be awarded the contract. Now, this interception was made in 2017, and right now the Delhi High Court is telling that economic offences of large magnitude such as public contracts directly is related to public safety. So maybe that contract is for redevelopment of some border projects or construction of some highway projects or any public infrastructural projects that is actually related to public safety, right? So this is a general extension of this court ruling. So Supreme Court told that corruption threatens national economic safety, which directly undermines public trust. So that is why this phone tapping case is admissible in court. And the court can take some action on this because the government is giving some proper conclusive evidence. Now it is up for debate. In the comments you let me know with whom you are agreeing to. You should be letting me your opinions known, because this is actually a case where your abilities of analytical skills and your logical skills will be coming up, right? So now we have to focus mainly on one important legal principle which the Supreme Court believes in letter and spirit, which is the doctrine of proportionality. Doctrine of proportionality is very simple to understand. See, if there is a phone tapping law in the country, now that law, is essential for the country's security needs, for country's sovereignty, for maintaining good relations, and to prevent offenses. Now you know that offenses, sovereignty are important for the country, while it may not be important for one person in the country. While they can go on having so many offenses or go against the country, for that person, we can actually take away some fundamental rights in the national security matter. So we can actually legislate a law such as, the telegraph rules that the Supreme Court also laid down in the PUCL case. So it means that any law, any rule in the country must be adhering to 4 important principles, which was highlighted in the Putwasamy judgment 2017. So this 4-part proportionality test tells that for any law or action that is restricting our article number 14, 19 and 21 fundamental rights, they must be fulfilling the legality principle, which means that any law must be legal. That any action taken by the government to take away your fundamental rights, in case of reasonable restrictions, must be having a law, right, passed by the parliament. Next, it must be having a legitimate aim. The law should be telling you elaborately why it is taking your article number 14, 19, 21. So there must be an aim for that, and that aim must be legitimate, must be rational, and it must be necessary in the interest of the nation, and it must be proportional. That means that the overall benefit must be benefiting the public more, right, when we talk about the security cases and so on. So these are the 4 ideals you have to keep in mind, right? So the government can restrict a fundamental right only to the extent if it thinks that it is necessary for achieving a legitimate goal, no more or no less. Remember this statement for the same. Even way back in 1978 in the Maneka Gandhi case versus Union of India, the Supreme Court also ruled that any law or procedure impacting fundamental rights must be fair, just and reasonable. So any law which is impacting fundamental rights is not unconstitutional, as the Supreme Court also ruled in this PUCL case. It upheld the section 5 subclause 2, but it did not strike it as unconstitutional, because India needs this kind of provisions because we have to prevent crimes, right? So that is why if we look at case by case matter in the Delhi High Court case, as per the legality is concerned, the MHA, the Ministry of Home Affairs, approved the tap as per law. So they are correct legally. When we talk about their legitimate aim, they were correct because they were preventing large-scale corruption. Because this phone tapping of those owners were legitimate because they were stopping a corruption which was in public safety interest. Also, when they were tapping, they were preventing corruption, which actually is a national risk, and they prevented it. That is why they are justified. It was necessary. And when we talk about the benefit, it was more benefit to the public than privacy loss of some 1-2 corrupt people. Now when we look at the Madras High Court perspective, the Ministry of Home Affairs approved the tap but did not follow procedure according to the High Court. Also, when we talk about legitimate aim, here the main aim was preventing tax evasion, right, which is not a public safety. And also when we talk about the necessity, the High Court told that there are other legal provisions also. Apart from only tapping the phone calls, you have to first penalize the person, you have to first penalize the officer. So these are legitimate actions, these were necessary actions earlier. Then only you should have come to the phone tapping case, which is the last resort. And also the court told that the privacy infringement is unjustified for the end goal, right, where you could have taken some other actions too. So now I leave it again to your debate. You let me know in the comments what you think about the same, mainly about the Madras High Court judgment. And after this, you again practice this question. You let me know in the comments so that I can actually look at how well you understood the concept. Now on to the simplified articles. Guys, census has always been in the news recently, and for the very first time, the Registrar General of India has declared that this census 2027 will be the first digital census of the country, where it relates to GS2, mainly the government policies, where you have to focus on the basic facts of census in the country. Now we know that the population data is actually carried upon in the census, and right now we are having an outdated census from 2011. Due to the COVID pandemic, the census could not be held in 2021 and it was actually postponed ever since. Now here in India, the main responsible body to conduct the census is the Registrar General of India and the Census Commissioner, who is essentially the same person, right? The census is actually taking place every 10 years. So during the 10 years, he fulfills the responsibility and duties as a Census Commissioner. But for the rest of the time, he is actually dealing with the civil registration system, which is actually a robust system to capture the birth rate and the death rates and the registration of the same in the country. It is under the aegis of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, when I briefly talk about the census, it is not a new concept, It is actually stretching back to Rig-Vedic times. Even Chanakya in Arthashastra emphasized on the need for localized population survey. Akbar also did the same in Ain-e-Akbari, mainly for economic reforms and political organization of his subjects. After the same, during the British rule, we also see one of the earliest instances of census taking place in Allahabad, right now known as Prayagraj, in 1824, and at Banaras in 1827 to 28, right now known as Varanasi. Now, the first non-synchronous census, which is, a type of census which is not held at one period of time across the entire country, was started formally in 1872. But the first synchronous census was held in 1881 by W.C. Plowden. Now, in the comments, you let me know who was actually the Governor General of India during 1872. Also, in 1921 census, we saw the great divide where the population declined with reference to 1911 census due to the flu pandemic, right? And in 2001, after independence, we also introduced the intelligent character recognition, important for your prelims examination, right? And also in 2011, we for the first time also introduced socio-economic and caste census. And the main authority of the census is actually drawn from the 7th schedule, the Union List entry number 69, after independence, the country enacted Census Act 1948. And this is why this is actually a very important institution for the entire country. And what is new in the present census, we have to keep in mind first. But firstly, please do know that it will be conducted in two phases, phase 1 and phase 2, where phase 1 will be dealing with the house listing and housing census, where basic information about housing, condition, water, toilets, everything will be collected. Next, in 27, the population enumeration such as demographic and social data and economic data will be connected. And mainly, it will be all be made digitally, because mobile applications will be used for the first time. And here the enumerators who will be going home to home, door to door to enumerate the peoples, they will be using personal smartphones where they can have this application on their phones. And also the capture of data in English, Hindi and regional language is also a first time thing which will be happening. Correct? Now, whatever the data that we are going to collect, it will be all be linked to a central server. And for those of us common people who wants to self-enumerate, right, we can do the same via the web portal, which will be also be launched soon for both of the phases. So it means that it will be made much more easier for mainly the digitally connected individuals to enumerate themselves and give their data directly to the government of India. And between the same, we also have the caste enumeration, which will be included as a part of our census in recent times. Now, we have to understand the constitutional and political importance of this move. The next general election is due in 2029, where according to constitutional provisions, first census after 2026 will be the basis for delimitation of our Lok Sabha constituencies and state assembly seats. In the comments, you let me know, when the next delimitation is due, right? Next. Also, when we talk about the caste census, this has returned after 90 plus years after independence, because the last one was held in 1931 by the British. And potentially, the data that we get right now in 2027 will be reshaping our reservation policies. Also, the data that we get from the same will be also be freezing the state boundaries temporarily from 2026 Jan to March 2027 due to administrative factors. And finally, we have to watch out from challenges, mainly when we talk about the digital enumeration. Many sections of the populations are not aware of the digital tools, right? So there can be a digital divide in this particular matter. So the government must not be leaving the digital enumeration only to the people. They must be sending door-to-door officials who will be collecting the data. Also, data security is a factor. Right now we are seeing increasing attacks by Pakistan and Chinese cyber groups. So the data can be at risk, and a state-to-state coordination is also required in this matter, because this is a national exercise on a grander scale. So that is why such credibility must be maintained between the state governments. Now, we have completed this topic. We'll be moving on to the next one. Guys, it seems that many countries across the entire world are releasing their citizenship gold cards. It was actually the US government by Mr. Trump who recently announced a similar scheme. Right now, the UAE has also followed the same, but only for Indians and Bangladeshis. So this is where we have to talk from this perspective of economic development and Indian diaspora and Indian economy for your mains examination. Now, when we talk about defining a golden visa, it is actually a residency by investment program that allows any person to actually live and work in a foreign country without any sponsor, right? And this will be in exchange for some investment in property, bonds or businesses, or paying a one-time fee, right? So these are the general characteristics of any gold card. Now, when we talk about gold visa by the UAE, this has given a lifetime validity for anyone who will be buying this for around 23.3 lakh rupees, which translates to around 1 lakh AED. And here no investment is required, as we discussed here. So no investment will be required. You only need to pay the sum of money, and you do not need to buy a property or any business. And this particular thing will be giving you the benefits of, you can keep some sponsor family, you can keep servants, you can keep drivers, or start any business. So you have the freedom to do so for a lifetime, because earlier it was just around 5 to 10 years. Right? And also when we talk about the nomination, it will be done by, the authorities in Dubai. And also the eligibility of the same will be that the person should not be having any money laundering cases. It should not be having some criminal record. That person should be having a clean social media record, because right now increasingly when we talk about the visa process, everyone will be seeing your social media profiles and what your comments were, how your likes were. Correct? And also when we talk about the recent visas issued, this can be also issued without visiting UAE, and this will be via the various centers which will be listed in the country. Right? Now, why is this very significant for the country? Firstly, we have to understand that we always talk about the import and exports of goods and services. Why not the transnational movement of people? Because people are service providers, right? Some will be designing software, some will be going abroad for teaching at universities. So why not they have free movement after paying a sum of money? So either they can pay or their companies can pay, and they can have a seamless movement without too much of visa restrictions. So it will be actually having a good perspectives on economic upsides. It will be encouraging talented professionals and not only rich business people, right? We have also professionals who can actually move in and out of the country, and this can reduce the brain drain in our country too, because the major aspect of the or say the major restrictions of the NRIs is that we cannot have double citizens, right? So if we can actually have this kind of golden visas with many countries, we can have brain circulation and diaspora engagement in those countries. And at the end of the day, it will be also be the next step in the comprehensive economic partnership that we have with the UAE, right? Also, this will be looking at elevating the bilateral ties, right? Because we recently had the India-UAE CEPA, which is a comprehensive economic partnership spanning so many sectors. Also, they talked about increasing people-to-people ties, mainly these schemes. Also, India is the first country chosen for this pilot project along with Bangladesh. This means that we are improving ties with the country, and also this will be likely be extended to China and other members too. Now, the main concerns here will be that despite the strict checks by the authorities, there still can be rising instances of money laundering, because according to various reports, the UAE authorities sometimes have been involved in some cases related to this. Next, there will be security risks, because some Indian citizen can be coming in contact with some foreign national totally antagonistic against the Indian interests. And there can be a housing crisis in UAE because of more number of golden visas. These people will be demanding housing or real estate properties. This will be increasing the prices according to some of the economists in that country, not in India. And at the end of the day, there are fears that if the program will be rolled back, what will be the destiny of those people who have bought the same or who are staying the same for many years. So these are the various concerns. Now we'll be moving on to the next one. Guys, we have a very important editorial here related to maternal mortality rate, and this will be giving us so many data important for our GS2 issues pertaining to the health sector in our country. Now, here in this article, the author has highlighted that in childbirth in India, why should 93 women lose their lives while 1 lakh women have a safe delivery? So he's actually mentioning about the maternal mortality rate, which is nothing but the death of a woman while being pregnant or within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of the duration and the site of pregnancy, from any cause or related events related to pregnancy or its management, not from any accident event, right? So this is why he is telling in the very beginning that India is having 93 maternal mortality events per 1 lakh women. So this is where we have to understand that in India, over a period of time, though the maternal mortality rate has reduced to 93 per 1 lakh women, but when we look at the same from the state governments, right? So he has actually divided the state-wise MMR via 3 groups. Firstly, via the empowered action group, which needs immediate attention, because here the MMR is ranging from 51 to 175, which is actually a lot, right? Mainly the states of Bihar, UP, MP, Odisha, Chhattisgarh and so on, they are having these high rates. Then southern states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, they are having a very low MMR rate, and followed by other states such as Maharashtra, Gujarat, West Bengal, who are having quite serious and alarming rates. So here we see that Kerala has been the best performer with MMR as low as 20. We also have Madhya Pradesh, who is having the highest MMR at 175, and Assam and Uttar Pradesh are the worst performer in the empowered action group. So that is why we now have to look into why so many mothers are dying during childbirth. This is a very sad event where According to a Columbia University study by Deborah Main in 1992, she tried to underline 3 delay model. So women during childbirth go through 3 delays. Firstly, they delay seeking care. This is due to a lack of awareness, education and social inertia. Next, they delay on reaching the health facility because they do not have proper transportation and they are maybe from the remote areas. And the final delay is actually receiving adequate care for themselves, because even after they are taking care at hospitals, at local clinics, at local government clinics, they do not have proper staff or operation theatre or blood transfusion center or infrastructural facilities, because there are various medical reasons behind maternal deaths. Firstly, we have the postpartum hemorrhage, which is generally the excessive bleeding after delivery, right? And this can be prevented via immediate blood transfusion or various medicines. Next, also there are medical reasons of obstructed labor, because the baby sometimes could not pass through small pelvis, which we can also solve by timely Caesar deliveries, right? The C-section. We also have eclampsia, which is nothing but high blood pressure in women, which leads to seizures, and it can lead to coma even, which can actually be identified by early diagnosis, BP control, and this is generally if they follow a 3 delay model. Next, also there are rising instances of infections or sepsis in hospitals, because we have unclean delivery or abortions, we do not have proper staff, and that can be tackled by use of antibiotics and trained people. Next, the unsafe abortions are sometimes illegally conducted. They are crude, that means they are conducted with very unsafe kind of procedures, right? And this can be tackled with proper family planning procedures, legal safety services. And at the end of the day, we know that women in India suffer the most from anemia due to low iron levels, and this can be actually be supplanted with iron, folic acid and supplements during pregnancy. So these are the various things that we need to do. Apart from this, we have so many government initiatives that have helped us so far, such as the Janani Suraksha Yojana, by giving financial incentive for institutional delivery at hospitals, not at homes. Next, we also have the ASHA workers and also the auxiliary nurse and midwives, which are trained people to actually look at delivering so many pregnant women in the country and giving doorstep support even. Also, we have the 108 ambulance scheme for giving free emergency support. We have the Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan for having clean and free checkups, and especially for high risk pregnancies. Also, under the National Health Mission, we have maternal death review, a proper report monitoring platform for analyzing and fixing gaps. A very important case study you can actually insert in your mains answers is actually developed by Dr. V.P. Paili, which is actually Kerala's confidential review model, which looks at actually looking at those secret maternal deaths which were caused due to unknown reasons. So what Dr. Paili did, he looked at those cases for which the data is not known properly, and for them he actually talked about bringing those women forward and giving them proper care by cutting edge protocols, by stopping bleeding via uterine artery clamps, or giving emergency protocols for various other medical procedures, and also for looking at mental health. So these actually translated Kerala to having the lowest MMR in India. So let us use this in our mains. Now on to the next one. Guys, in the next one we'll be looking at the recent statement of our Minister of Ships, Ports and Waterways by Mr. Sarbananda Sonowal, who actually focused on having a blueprint for creating 50,000 jobs in the northeast states of our country to bring the youths into mainstream population. Following the same, he also talked about completing the Kaladan Multimodal project by 2027. And this particular project is actually linked with reference to India and its neighborhood relations, because the Kaladan Multimodal Transportation project is actually a mega project which starts from Kolkata. It actually talks about bringing the various goods to the Northeast India via Bay of Bengal and the roadways and the railways of Myanmar and finally to Northeast India, totally bypassing Bangladesh in this particular way and totally bypassing the long distance that we have to go via the Chicken Neck Siliguri corridor. So here, when we talk about the very basics, the Kaladan river is having a length of 450 kilometers and having its mouth at the Bay of Bengal at Sitwe, Myanmar, not in India. So you have to keep this in mind for prelims. Now these are also known for in other names, but in India it is known as Chim Tui Pui river. Now here, when we talk about this entire project, this is talking about developing the region into a multimodal transport, which means we are using the seaways, we are using the inland waterways via rivers and also the roadways. So mainly the important places that we have to keep in mind here is that we will be beginning at sea from Kolkata to Sitwe in Myanmar. So this will be via the 539 kilometers of Bay of Bengal transit. Then after this we will be reaching the inland waterway at Sitwe port to Paletwa in Myanmar. So here this will be via the Kaladan river. We will be using the inland waterways of Myanmar. After this we will be using the roadways, where we are using the Paletwa to Zorinpui. This will be in Mizoram, India. This will be a 110 kilometer road. And finally, we will be entering India by the Zorinpui, and the goods will be transported to as well by the national highway. So this is a comprehensive way where we can actually try to understand how we can have intermodal transportation. So here mainly we see that most of the construction by India has been completed here, but mainly the road from Paletwa to Zorinpui and the last section is pending as of now. And this is why the statement is coming from the minister, it will be completed by 2027. So mainly the main significance is that we will be trying to bypass our very sensitive Siliguri corridor, which is a 22 kilometer wide length only. We also will be boosting the India-ASEAN connectivity because India is having this Act East policy as its resolve, and also we have India, Myanmar, Thailand trilateral highway which will be boosted if we complete this project. The strategic depth is that we are looking at securing the Bay of Bengal using economic relations, and also we will be countering China in this region by also giving investments to Myanmar and jobs in the region. And at the end of the day, we are trying to uplift the northeastern states by giving proper connectivity that they have lacked for decades. This will be looking at giving port-led development and also shrugging off the apprehensions caused by Yunus, the Bangladesh premier, allegedly at some Chinese event. So in the comments you let me know what you think about it. Now we'll be moving on to the last article. Guys, the northeast region will maybe see some more violence in recent times because as of July, in the beginning weeks, we have around 4,000 Shin people moving to Mizoram. This is a part where we need to talk about GS2 again with reference to our neighborhood relations and also some internal security concerns. Before we start, we have to look at the greater Zo tribal ethnicity. Now, these tribal communities were present traditionally, from British times across India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. So these were present in these forested areas and hilly areas. Now this area is dominated by the Shin people for thousands of years. But right now, they are actually looking into moving into the, our own country. Now, when we look at their ethnicity, they are scattered in so many parts of our country and also in the neighboring regions. Now, their current lineage consists of Mizos, the Shins in Myanmar, the Kukis, Zomis, Mars in the India's northeast region. We also have the Kuki and Shins along the Bangladesh border. So what happened in 2021 was a military coup in Myanmar which actually ousted the Aung San Suu Kyi's civilian government. After that, the military government came into power. We also have seen how after that the Rohingya refugee crisis also increased over a period of time. Next, in 2021 to 2025, there were so many ethnic groups in Myanmar who took up arms against the Janta government or say the military coup. So prominently we saw CNDF and CDFH ethnic groups and various other groups also. But mainly the recent crisis or the recent conflict is between these two groups who are fighting between themselves, and mainly this is leading to the Shin minority people shifting out of Myanmar into Mizoram. So we have to understand here the main refugee crisis here, that we are seeing 4,000 new Shin people coming into our country. They're taking shelters because Mizoram has always been a natural shelter for the ethnic kinship groups in the regions. Because as you can see here, the greater Zo ethnicity people have familial relationships. So whenever they actually have some family occasions or some conflicts, they actually have a sense of solidarity. Also, the border is very porous. It is very difficult to have proper military installations and security apparatus because of dense jungles and the foliage in those regions, due to which we have this kind of refugees taking place in the country. And also, one of the main reasons is that we have the free movement regime, which the central government apparently recently told that it will be scrapping away. But as of now, this is still functional, which is giving a 16-kilometer radius on each side of the border for the local people to cross without needing visa. So the Myanmar tribal groups and Indian tribal groups across the borders who have tribal relations between these regions, they can easily cross the border. And the refugees are using these routes to come into the country. Maybe we can see some clashes in the northeast regions because of this influx of refugees. And that is why we have to take care of this matter properly, and the government must be monitoring this situation with utmost care and attention. So with this, I come to the final conclusion. Thank you all for being a very patient audience. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up. Till we meet again, all the best and best of luck. Thank you.